Sarah.
The widow was sweeping the yard when the cowboy said her name. The sound stopped the broom in mid-stroke. Dust hung in the air between them. She did not turn around at first. Her hands tightened around the wooden handle. The yard had been empty a moment ago. She had heard no horse. No boots on gravel. Then the voice came again, quiet but certain. Clara. Now she turned. A man stood by the gate. Tall. Still. Hat low over his eyes. The horse behind him shifted, but the rider did not move. Clara studied him. She had lived alone on the ranch long enough to know every rider within 20 miles. She had never seen this one. You got the wrong place, she said. The cowboy said nothing. He watched her like a man measuring distance. Clara pushed the broom into the dirt and leaned on it. You deaf? She asked. I said you got the wrong place. The cowboy stepped forward once. Boots slow against the dust. No, he said quietly. I got the right place. Clara's eyes narrowed. You don't know me. I do. That's so. He nodded once. Silence stretched between them. The wind brushed the dry grass along the fence. Clara looked him over again. Old coat. Road dust. Gun low on the hip but untouched. You planning to explain why you're standing in my yard saying my name? She asked. The cowboy did not answer right away. His eyes moved to the ranch house. The barn. The old well beside the fence. Then back to her. You still keep the broom by the door, he said. Clara's grip tightened. You been watching my house? No. Then how do you know that? The cowboy lifted his chin slightly. Your husband told me. The words hit like a thrown rock. Clara felt something cold slide down her spine. My husband's been dead 3 years, she said flatly. I know. Then you better explain real fast. The cowboy took another step into the yard. Clara straightened and raised the broom a little higher. That's close enough. He stopped. Dust settled around his boots. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Finally Clara said, What's your name? Eli. Last name? He shook his head once. Just Eli. That ain't an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Clara studied him harder now. His voice carried something heavy inside it. Not fear. Not anger. Something older. You rode with him, she said suddenly. The cowboy did not react. With my husband, she continued. That's what you're trying to say. Eli nodded once. Long time ago. Clara let out a slow breath. My husband never mentioned you. He wouldn't. Why not? Because the night I met him was the night he died. The broom dropped an inch. Clara stared. You're lying. No. You're lying, she repeated louder. Eli did not move. Clara's voice sharpened. My husband died in a cattle accident. Sheriff said the horse spooked. Threw him under the fence wire. Eli looked toward the barn again. That's what they told you. They told the whole valley. That don't make it true. Clara stepped closer now, anger rising fast. You got some nerve riding onto my land with ghost stories. Eli's eyes met hers. Did the sheriff come that night? Clara stopped. What? The night your husband died, Eli said quietly. Did he come himself? Yes. How long after? I don't know. An hour? Maybe. Eli nodded slowly. Too fast, he said. Clara felt her chest tighten. You watch your mouth. I was there. The words landed hard. Clara shook her head. No. Yes. You expect me to believe that? Eli said nothing. She pointed the broom handle toward him. If you were there, then why didn't you say something 3 years ago? His answer came soft. Because I ran. Clara's face hardened. Then you better keep running. I would've, Eli said. But your husband made me promise something before he died. Clara froze. He didn't die right away, Eli continued. Not when the bullet hit him. The world seemed to tilt slightly. Clara whispered, bullet. Eli nodded. Sheriff shot him. Clara felt her pulse pounding now. You shut up. He told me to come back someday, Eli said. When the valley got quiet enough to hear the truth. Stop. And he told me something else. Clara's voice shook. What? Eli looked straight at her. He told me your name. Silence fell across the ranch. The horse shifted again near the gate. Clara swallowed. You're lying. Eli reached slowly into his coat. Clara raised the broom again. Don't. I ain't drawing a gun. His hand came out holding something folded. Old paper. He tossed it gently into the dirt between them. Clara stared at it. She did not move. Go on, Eli said. Clara stepped forward slowly and picked it up. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. The handwriting hit her first. Rough. Familiar. Her husband's. Her breath caught in her throat. Eli watched quietly. Clara read the first line out loud without meaning to. If anything happens to me, tell Clara the sheriff did it. The broom slipped from her fingers. Dust rose around her boots. And the quiet cowboy waited. Clara's fingers trembled around the letter. The paper shook slightly in the quiet yard. She stared at the handwriting again as if it might change if she blinked. Her voice came out rough. Where did you get this? Eli did not move. Your husband gave it to me. You just said he was dying. He was. Then how did he write it? He wrote it before. Clara looked up slowly. Before what? Before the sheriff came. The words landed like stones in still water. Clara folded the paper tight in her fist. Start talking. Eli kept his voice calm. Your husband knew something was coming. That makes no sense. He knew they were coming for the land. Clara shook her head. No one comes for land out here. They do if the land hides something. Clara stepped closer. You speak in riddles. Eli watched her carefully. Did your husband ever talk about the north pasture? No. Not once. No. Eli nodded slowly. Then he kept that part quiet. Clara's eyes narrowed. Quiet about what? The water writes under it. Clara felt a flicker of confusion. It's dry ground. Not under it. Clara stared. Eli continued. There's a deep spring under that pasture. Old survey found it years back. Then why isn't it used? Because the record disappeared. Clara's jaw tightened. You saying someone stole water? I'm saying powerful men wanted it. Clara looked down at the letter again. Her husband's writing stared back at her like a ghost. You expect me to believe the sheriff murdered my husband over water? Eli shrugged slightly. Not just water. Then what? The pipeline they plan to run through this valley. Clara blinked. Pipeline. Eli nodded once. Governor's office. Ranch syndicate. Sheriff was the one clearing land. Clara laughed once, sharp and bitter. You've been writing too long in the sun. Eli did not smile. Your husband found the contract, he said quietly. Clara's laughter died. What contract? The one giving your land to the state once the owner was declared dead without heirs. Clara stared at him. I am the heir, she said slowly. They didn't think you'd stay. Silence fell again. Clara looked around the ranch yard. The barn. The fence. The dry pasture beyond the ridge. You're saying they expected me to leave? Yes. And when I didn't? They waited. Clara swallowed hard. For 3 years. Eli nodded. Clara pointed toward the road. Why come now? Because the governor signed the order last week. Her stomach dropped. What order? State seizure. Clara stepped back. That's impossible. Papers already written. You're lying. Eli's voice stayed level. Writers will come soon. Clara paced a few steps across the dirt. No. No, this ranch is paid for. Paper says otherwise. She stopped and turned on him. Why are you telling me this? Because your husband asked. You ran away. Yes. And now you ride back like some savior. I ain't a savior. Then what are you? Eli hesitated. A witness. Clara folded the letter again. Her voice grew colder. You said you saw the sheriff shoot him. I did. Where? By the well. Clara's head snapped toward the old stone well beside the fence. You're lying again. I'm not. My husband died by the north fence. That's where they moved him. Clara's breathing slowed. Why would they move a body? To make it look like a fall. Clara walked slowly toward the well. Eli followed a few steps behind. She stopped beside the old stones. Her hand rested on the edge. You're telling me he died here? Yes. Right here? Yes. Clara looked down into the dark shaft. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What was he doing here? Eli answered softly. Waiting for me. Clara turned sharply. Why you? Because I had the survey records. Records of what? The water under your land. Clara felt a chill spread through her chest. So my husband called you here? Yes. To prove the sheriff was stealing land? Yes. Clara's eyes hardened. And the sheriff came first? Eli nodded. Clara closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, the grief was gone. Something colder had replaced it. You said writers are coming, she said. Yes. When? Eli looked toward the road. Soon. Clara picked the broom back up slowly. She leaned it against the well. Then she turned to Eli. You don't talk much, she said. No. Good. She walked toward the house. Eli watched her. Clara stopped at the door and looked back. Her voice was steady now. Because when those writers get here, she said, I'm going to need someone who knows how to shoot. Clara was inside the kitchen, wiping her hands on a rag, when the sound of hooves hit the gravel outside. She froze. Eli was on the porch, still silent, eyes scanning the horizon. The sun was low, shadows stretching long across the yard, turning the familiar ranch into something tense, something unfamiliar. They're here, Eli said quietly. Clara's stomach twisted. Who? The sheriff's men. Her hands clenched around the rag. Just deputies? 3. Maybe 4. Clara felt the weight of the letter in her pocket. She hadn't let it go since Eli handed it over. Every word felt like fire against her chest. She stepped to the door, peering through the window slats. Dust rose where the riders approached. Boots and spurs catching the last sunlight. They think I'll hand over the land, Clara said under her breath. Maybe. They'll leave empty-handed, she muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. Eli didn't answer. When the deputies rode up to the gate, Their horses snorted and stomped. One dismounted, tall and broad, badge shining in the sun. The other two stayed on horseback, hands hovering near holsters. "Evening," the lead deputy said. His voice was smooth, practiced. "We just want to check on the property. Routine inspection." Clara stepped outside, broom in hand. "Inspection? You mean trying to scare me off?" "Ma'am, we're not here to scare you," the deputy said. He glanced at Eli. "Who's this?" Eli did not answer. His eyes stayed locked on the deputy's, silent and still. Clara raised an eyebrow. "He's with me. Now leave." "We're just doing our job," the deputy said, but there was unease under his words. "You don't want trouble." "I don't want trouble either," Clara said, "but it looks like trouble found me first." Eli stepped slightly forward, just enough to show presence. The deputies shifted uneasily. Something about him, maybe the quiet certainty, made them hesitate. "You know the sheriff?" Clara asked. "Indirectly," Eli said. Clara's eyes narrowed. "Indirectly?" "Doesn't matter," he said softly. The lead deputy cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we can come back another day." "No. Now. Today." "I need to know why you're here," Clara snapped. Eli's voice cut in, calm but firm. "They're here because the sheriff wants the land. That's all." The deputy blinked. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know enough," Eli said. Clara clenched her jaw. "Enough to admit he killed my husband?" The deputies exchanged quick, uneasy glances. One reached for the reins. "You're accusing the sheriff?" the lead deputy asked, voice tight. Eli didn't flinch. "I saw him do it." Clara felt the air thicken. Every breath was heavy. The deputy's hands twitched near his holster. "If that's true." "It is," Eli said. The sheriff wasn't here yet. But his shadow felt present in the heat and dust, in the way the deputy's eyes darted toward the ridge. Clara's mind raced. 3 years of quiet, 3 years of pretending her husband's death was just an accident, and now it all spilled into the yard. "Do you have proof?" the deputy asked. Eli's eyes met Clara's. She nodded slightly. He stepped closer. "Your husband wrote it down. Told me to come back when someone threatened the ranch." The lead deputy paled. "If the sheriff finds out." "I don't care what the sheriff finds out," Clara said, stepping forward. "He'll have to go through me first." Eli remained silent. The deputies hesitated, boots shifting against the dirt. They hadn't expected this. They hadn't expected a widow to stand so calm in the yard with a silent stranger beside her. "You think we're going to ride away?" one muttered under his breath. Clara pointed at the well beside the barn. "Don't test me. Don't test my land. Don't test my patience." Eli's hand hovered near his gun, but he didn't draw. The tension stretched, long and thin, between the riders and the ranch. Dust settled slowly over the fence, over the barn, over the old boards of the house. Finally, the lead deputy sighed and nodded to the others. "All right. We'll be leaving. But we'll be back." Clara's chest rose and fell. "You better hope you don't come back to find me alone." The deputies mounted their horses and kicked off toward the road. Their spurs jingled, fading into the distance. Eli remained still. Clara watched the horizon, feeling the heat of anger mix with the chill of fear. "Why didn't you warn me sooner?" she asked finally. "Because I needed to be sure you were ready," Eli said. Clara laughed, low and bitter. "Ready? I'd been ready since the day he died." Eli didn't answer. Clara stepped closer to the well and dropped the letter inside, letting it flutter down into the darkness. She heard the paper settle, felt the weight of what it meant. Eli's eyes followed the well, quiet and watchful. "You think they'll come back?" Clara asked. "They will." "Then we wait," she said, broom in hand, fists tight. "And we make sure they regret it." Eli nodded once. He didn't speak again. But his presence said enough. They would not face this valley alone. The sun sank lower. Shadows swallowed the yard. Clara's chest tightened with the memory of her husband, the weight of the sheriff's shadow, and the strange, silent man who had stepped into her life and refused to leave. When the wind brushed across the dry grass, she whispered, "I'm not afraid anymore." Eli only nodded. And in that quiet yard, with dust rising and shadows lengthening, the first true shift of power began. Clara's hands trembled as she led Eli into the house. The air inside smelled of old wood and dust, the familiar scent now thick with tension. She stopped in the living room, eyes flicking to the boards beneath the rug. "He hid it here," she said, voice low. "I always knew he kept secrets." Eli knelt slowly, fingers tracing the edges of the loose floorboard. "He trusted you with more than I realized," he said softly. Clara dropped to her knees beside him. "Then why hide it?" "Because he knew they'd come," Eli said. "Because he knew no one would believe a widow." Clara's hands worked quickly, lifting the board. Dust rose like smoke, curling into the slanted light from the window. Eli leaned closer, peering into the small cavity beneath the floor. Inside lay a bundle of papers, yellowed with age, tied with a thin piece of leather string. Her breath caught. "He wrote everything?" Eli nodded. "Every meeting, every threat, every plan the sheriff and those families made to take the land." Clara pulled the papers out carefully, fingers brushing over the faded ink. Her husband's handwriting sprawled across each page, neat yet frantic in spots. She read the first line aloud, "If anything happens to me, Clara must know the truth." Eli watched her face, silent. "He wanted you to fight." "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "You can," Eli said. "You already survived 3 years of fear. This is just exposure." Clara shook her head, tears threatening. "Exposure doesn't make you safe. It makes you armed," Eli said. She looked at him, startled. "Armed?" "Armed with knowledge," he said. "Truth is heavier than any gun, and sharper." Clara unfolded the first page fully. The handwriting described a long, twisted scheme, the sheriff orchestrating the deaths and disappearances of ranch owners, the governor's office signing papers to seize lands, old ranch families colluding to claim what wasn't theirs. Her husband had documented it all. Every threat. Every promise broken. She felt rage coil in her chest. He tried to stop them. "He did what he could," Eli said. "Until they killed him." Clara's voice cracked. "Then they thought I'd leave, too." "They did." She paced the living room, clutching the papers. Dust rose from the floorboards as her boots scraped. 3 years, she said. 3 years I lived like a ghost on my own land." Eli remained on the floor, watching quietly. "You're not a ghost," he said. "Not anymore." Clara's hands shook. She threw the papers onto the table, scanning for names she recognized, deeds she had signed unknowingly. Every line pulled her deeper into a past she had tried to forget. "They thought the sheriff could hide this," she said, voice rising. "That everyone would forget." "Some people forget," Eli said. "Others don't." Clara clenched her fists. "I'll make sure no one forgets me." Eli nodded. "That's why I'm here." "Your husband made me promise." "Promise what?" she asked sharply. "That I'd help you," he said. "Not with words. Not with fear. With action." Clara swallowed hard. "Action." "Yes." "Action," Eli repeated. "Because the sheriff won't stop. The families won't stop. And they expect you to do nothing." Clara picked up one of the papers, scanning the details of the sheriff's plan. She felt her hands tremble less now, replaced with a rigid determination. "If they think I'm weak, they're wrong," she said. "They've always been wrong about you," Eli said quietly. Clara's eyes narrowed. "And if they come here?" "Then you do what he wanted," Eli said. "Protect this place. Protect yourself." She dropped the letter bundle onto the table. I don't even know where to start. Eli stood, tall and still. Start with truth. Read every line. Memorize it. Every weakness they've exposed themselves to. Clara ran a finger along a page detailing the sheriff's dealings with the governor. He knew, she said. All this time, he knew who would betray whom. Eli's expression didn't change. He had to. And he wanted you to have it too. Clara's mind raced. Names, dates, letters, deeds, all of it painted a picture of betrayal, murder, and greed. The sheriff had orchestrated every part of it. Every hidden ledger, every forged document, every false testimony. She looked at Eli. I don't know if I'm ready for this. You are, Eli said. You survived loss. You survived fear. Now you survive them. Clara's jaw tightened. Survive them? Yes, Eli said. And one day, they'll regret thinking they could control you. She picked up the letter bundle and stacked it neatly on the table. Her chest felt tight, the weight of knowledge pressing down, but with it came a strange clarity. The fear that had haunted her for years was giving way to something else, resolve. Clara walked to the window, looking out at the yard where dust still swirled. She turned to Eli, eyes sharp now, voice steady. Then we prepare. We don't wait for them to make the first move. Eli nodded. No. We don't. Clara lifted the broom from where she had leaned it against the wall. This place isn't leaving me. Not today. Not ever. And they'll learn, Eli said, that a widow who knows the truth is more dangerous than any gun. She looked down at the papers one last time. Every line her husband had written now burned in her mind. She would not forget. She would not surrender. The sun sank lower outside, painting the room in long, slanted shadows. Clara moved toward the door, the broom in hand, letters secured on the table, her face set like iron. Eli followed silently. Together, they stepped out onto the yard. Dust rose beneath their boots, the wind brushing across the empty spaces, carrying a quiet warning to anyone who thought the ranch would fall easily. Clara's voice broke the silence. We start tonight. Eli said nothing. He didn't need to. She knew he would be ready. And she knew, finally, she was too. Clara walked slowly across the dry pasture behind the house, the letter bundle pressed tightly to her chest. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows over the gravestones. Her husband's grave waited at the edge of the field, quiet, solemn, and too small to hold the weight of what had been done. Eli followed a few steps behind, silent as always, watching her move. She stopped at the grave and dropped to her knees. Her hands trembled as she touched the rough stone, fingers tracing the carved letters. You were supposed to protect me, she whispered. You left me alone. Eli crouched beside her, hands on his knees. He didn't leave you, he said quietly. He made sure someone would come back. That's why I'm here. Clara shook her head, tears brimming. Someone? Yes, Eli said. Someone who knows the truth. Her gaze drifted over the field. Dust, dry grass, and the faint outline of fences. You're telling me he didn't die by accident, she said. Not by the horse. Not by the fence. I'm telling you what I saw, Eli said softly. The sheriff shot him. Clara's chest tightened. She shook her head violently. No. That can't be true. It is, Eli said. I watched. I stayed silent because they would have killed me too. Clara's hands clawed at the dirt. All these years, all this grief, built on lies. Yes, Eli said. But now you know. Her voice rose, shaking with rage. Why didn't you come sooner? Why let me think it was an accident? I was afraid, Eli admitted. And I had to be sure you were ready. Strong enough to hear it. Clara's eyes burned. Ready? Ready doesn't even begin to cover it. I've spent 3 years living like a ghost on my own land. I've watched every stranger, every rider, every shadow, wondering if it was him. Wondering if the sheriff would come for me next. He would have, Eli said. If you'd ignored the letter. If you hadn't listened. Her voice dropped, trembling. And my husband, he trusted you? He did. Clara looked at him, searching his face. And you? Do you trust me? Eli's jaw tightened. He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, I don't have a choice. I promised him. Clara leaned back against the grave, hands clutching the cold stone. I feel like I'm standing in a nightmare, she whispered. Like I'd been walking through shadows without knowing they were real. You are, Eli said. But nightmares can end. Clara's lips pressed into a thin line. Can they? Yes, Eli said. If you don't run. If you face them. Her eyes drifted to the horizon, where the faint glow of dust and sun met the dry ridge. And the sheriff? He'll come, Eli said. Riders, deputies, all of them. They think the land is theirs. Clara swallowed hard. But it's not. No, Eli said quietly. It's yours. And now you know why. Her fingers traced the letters again, every word her husband had written, every plan he had made to expose the sheriff, every name he had trusted into the past. Rage and grief intertwined in her chest. I can't believe how long they thought they could hide it, she whispered. They counted on fear, Eli said. They counted wrong. Clara's voice hardened. Then we make sure they pay. Eli looked at her. We can't start with rage alone. Strategy comes first. Clara stood, brushing dust from her knees. I don't care about strategy if it means letting them walk away, she said, voice sharp. I want them to feel the weight of every secret they've buried. Every life they've broken. You'll have that chance, Eli said. But first, you survive them. Clara's eyes softened for a moment, remembering her husband, the way he had looked at her, trusted her, counted on her to keep the ranch alive. She clenched her fists and turned back to the field. I survived the sheriff, she said. I survived everyone who thought they could take this place from me. I'll survive him too. Eli stepped closer, silent as ever. Clara's gaze fell on him. Do you ever talk? She asked. Only when it matters, he said. Clara nodded slowly. Then stay silent, for now. And watch. Eli gave the faintest nod, his eyes on the horizon, steady. Clara returned her attention to the grave, feeling the old weight lift slightly. Not gone, not forgotten, but shifted. She bent to scoop a handful of dirt and let it fall back over the ground, as if marking the end of the past and the beginning of what had to come. Her voice was firm, low. You wanted me to know the truth. I know it now. And I won't let it go. Eli said nothing, but his presence was affirmation enough. Clara stepped back from the grave and squared her shoulders. The wind whispered through the dry grass, carrying the faint echo of her husband's trust, and she realized the valley would no longer silence her. The shadow of the sheriff loomed somewhere beyond the ridge, but Clara felt it differently now. Fear had given way to certainty. Every step she took across the pasture was deliberate, every breath filled with resolve. Eli followed silently, always near, always ready, a witness to the truth that had finally been revealed. When she turned toward the ranch house, her voice was calm, unwavering. We begin tonight. They won't see it coming. Eli's eyes met hers. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. And in that quiet field, with the grave behind them and the shadow of the sheriff stretching far and wide, Clara felt the first true shift of power, hers. The sound of hooves echoed across the ridge before the riders appeared. Clara felt the vibration through the ground first, then through her chest. She dropped the letter bundle onto the table inside the house and grabbed her broom. Eli was already at the door, silent and watching. They're close, he said. Clara nodded, jaw tight. How many? 5. Maybe 6. Full squad this time. She swallowed hard. They'll try to take everything. They expect it, Eli said. They never thought you'd fight. Clara stepped onto the porch. Dust rose from the approaching horses, dry and choking. She gripped the broom tighter. Then we remind them who owns it. The sheriff's men came to the gate first, hands on holsters, eyes flicking between Clara and Eli. The lead deputy called out, "We don't want trouble, ma'am." "Step aside." Clara's voice cut through the dry wind. "Step aside? You step aside and you'll leave empty-handed." Eli's hand hovered near his gun, but he made no move to draw it. Clara knew he would act when necessary, but she needed the first move to be hers. The deputies exchanged nervous glances. "It's just property," one muttered. Clara laughed, short and bitter. "Property? This is my life. My husband's life. And they think they can steal it?" Eli didn't speak. He just watched, silent, calculating. Clara leaned toward the old well beside the porch. Dust rose as she opened the lid and shoved the letters inside. Then she pulled out an old kerosene can from the shed, poured it into the well, and struck a match. Flames licked the edges of the wood and letters, smoke curling into the air, the scent sharp and acrid. "Fire," one deputy yelled, stepping back. "That's evidence." Clara's voice was cold. "Evidence I never leave behind for men like you." The smoke twisted into the sky, black and thick. Horses shifted, hooves kicking up dirt. The deputies hesitated, unsure if they should advance. "They expect the widow to crumble," Eli said quietly, just enough for her to hear. "I don't crumble," she said. "I burn what they try to hide." The lead deputy raised his hands. "Easy. We can come back." "Not if you think I'll wait," Clara said, eyes locked on him. "Leave now, or see what it means to push me too far." Eli's gaze swept over the yard, every fence post, every ridgeline. "They're testing you," he said softly. Clara wiped sweat from her forehead. "Then let them." The smoke from the well grew heavier, the letters blackened and curled inside. Flames reflected in the deputies' eyes, hesitation written across their faces. They were unprepared for the fire, for the widow standing tall against them, for the silent man beside her who refused to speak. "Why do you stay quiet?" Clara asked Eli suddenly. "I watch," he said. "Watch? You're going to do more than watch." "I will," he said, voice low. "When the time comes." Clara lifted the broom again, swinging it slightly for balance. "The sheriff thinks I'm weak," she said. "They all do." "And they're wrong," Eli said. Dust whipped across the yard, mixing with smoke and ash. Clara's eyes narrowed. "Then let's remind them." The deputies backed away from the gate, glancing at the ridge where the sheriff would be watching, expecting to see fear. Fear did not answer back. Only fire, only defiance, only the quiet calm of a widow who knew her husband's secrets, her land, and the men who thought they could take both. "They'll be back," Eli said. "Let them," Clara said, chest rising and falling, eyes fixed on the black smoke. "When they do, I won't be waiting." Eli nodded. "Good. You won't wait. You'll act." The wind caught the smoke from the well, twisting it across the yard, turning the small flames into a warning. Clara felt it in her bones. This fire was more than kerosene and paper. It was the first strike, the first message, the first taste of power shifting back into her hands. The deputies spurred their horses, retreating down the dirt road, leaving the ranch quiet again, though the smoke lingered. Clara watched it curl into the sky, then turned to Eli. "When they come for real," she said, "we hit first." Eli remained silent, but the set of his shoulders and the sharpness in his eyes told her he agreed. Clara picked up the broom, steady now, flame flickering behind her. "This land belongs to me. And anyone who comes thinking otherwise will learn that the hard way." Eli's eyes swept the yard, slow and precise. The moment hung in the thick, smoky air. Clara felt the weight of 3 years lift slightly, replaced by resolve. And somewhere beyond the ridge, in the shadow of the valley, the sheriff's plans were already beginning to crumble, even if he did not know it yet. The sheriff arrived just as the smoke from the well was thinning, riding slowly, his boots heavy in the stirrups. Clara stood in the yard, broom in hand, eyes locked on him. Eli was beside her, silent, watching every move, every twitch of muscle. The deputies who had come earlier lingered on the ridge, unsure where loyalty ended and fear began. "Step aside, ma'am," the sheriff said, voice hard. "This is state property now. You have no claim here." Clara laughed once, short and bitter. "State property? You mean stolen property. You, your deputies, and that governor think you can take what my husband fought for. You're wrong." The sheriff's hand hovered near his gun. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." "I've been through harder than this," she said, broom tight in her hands. "You think a widow alone is afraid of you?" Eli shifted slightly, quietly, but made no move toward his gun. Clara knew he was ready, just as she was. "You think you're clever," the sheriff said. 3 years, and suddenly you remember the letters, remember your husband, remember me?" Clara stepped forward, chest rising. "I didn't remember. I knew. You killed him, tried to take everything, and you expected me to fold." "And now," the sheriff asked, voice low. "Now you'll see the difference between a widow who folds and a widow who knows." One of the deputies coughed nervously. The sheriff glanced at him and the others, then back at Clara. "You have no allies here." "Maybe not," Clara said, "but I have truth. And I have a man who saw everything. A man who will stand beside me. Your badges and authority don't scare me." The sheriff's eyes flicked to Eli. "You're just a witness. You're nothing." Eli didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence alone shifted the air, the balance. Clara felt it. The sheriff had underestimated them. "Stand down," she said finally, voice cold. "Step off my land. Leave now." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "You think you can tell me what to do?" "I don't think." "I know," Clara said. "I've lived in your shadow for too long. I've buried my husband. I've watched your games. And I will not leave. Not now. Not ever." The sheriff drew slightly, threatening. "You leave, or—" "You can try," Clara interrupted. "But it won't matter. I'm not afraid." The deputies shifted, uneasy. Some glanced at the ridge, then back at their leader. He barked another order, and one deputy stepped forward. Then another. Hesitation spread like wildfire. The sheriff's authority, carefully maintained for years, began to crack. "You're playing a dangerous game," he said, voice low. "And you'll lose everything." Clara smiled faintly. "I already lost nothing. I've kept the ranch. I've kept my husband's truth. And now, you'll learn what happens when you push someone who refuses to leave." Eli's hand rested near his gun, calm, silent, waiting. Clara's broom was steady. Her gaze never wavered. "Do you always stand this quiet?" she asked him softly. "Only when it matters," Eli said. Clara laughed, short. "Good. Then watch and see." The sheriff took a step back, realizing he had misjudged the widow. His plan had relied on fear, on compliance. What he saw now was resolve. He was the intruder. She was home. "Leave," Clara said again, firmer. "Go back to your men. Tell them the land isn't theirs. Tell them that if they come back, they'll face what I've learned." The sheriff's lips tightened. He looked at Eli. He looked at the yard. He looked at the widow who refused to blink, to bend, to run. He knew, deep down, that fear had shifted. Authority alone would not win this day. Finally, with a harsh snort, the sheriff signaled his men. The deputies lowered their hands, back stiff. They mounted and rode slowly away, eyes still wary. The sheriff followed, casting one last glance at Clara, whose chest rose with steady breaths, broom still in hand, the weight of years and knowledge settled in her bones. Clara exhaled, softly, letting the tension in her shoulders ease just slightly. She turned to Eli. "They'll be back," she said. "They always do," he said quietly. "And next time," she said, voice hard, "they'll find a widow who isn't afraid. And a man who never forgets." Eli's eyes swept the yard, over the fences, the ridge, the shadows stretching long. He nodded slightly. No words were needed. They had held the line, and the valley had shifted. The sheriff's power, once absolute, had lost its edge. Clara lifted her broom again, dust rising beneath her boots. She looked toward the horizon, to the ridge, to the road where the sheriff had disappeared, and whispered, "This land stays ours. They'll learn that soon enough." Eli stepped closer. "And when they do, we'll be ready," Clara said, cutting him off. The wind shifted, dry and cold, sweeping across the yard, carrying the faint echo of old secrets and older grief. The sheriff had thought he ruled the valley. He had not accounted for the quiet strength of a widow who refused to leave, and a silent witness who had waited years for this moment. The ranch was theirs, and Clara finally felt the weight of the past shift toward her favor. She picked up the broom again, dust curling around her boots. Eli remained beside her, silent and watchful, as the sun sank below the ridge. The air was tense, electric, full of the promise of confrontation yet to come. But for now, she stood, unbroken. And that was enough. The night settled heavy and still over the ranch, but Clara didn't rest. She stood on the porch, broom leaning against the railing, eyes fixed on the dark ridge where the sheriff and his men had vanished. Eli watched from the edge of the yard, silent as ever, his silhouette sharp against the dim moonlight. "They'll be back," Clara said softly, almost to herself. "They always are," Eli replied. Clara's fingers clenched the broom handle tighter. "And they'll bring more men next time. More guns, more threats." "Then you'll need to be ready," Eli said. "I am," she said, voice hardening. "But I don't just want to survive. I want them to remember." Eli's gaze swept the yard, the barn, the fences. "You think they'll even recognize fear if they see it?" Clara shook her head. "No. They'll see the truth instead." She walked toward the barn, boots crunching against gravel. Eli followed silently. Inside, the air smelled of hay and old wood, but tonight it felt charged, heavy with intent. Clara reached for the bundle of letters and papers she had pulled from under the floor earlier. Her husband's handwriting stared back at her like a ghost. Every word, every plan, every warning burned in her mind. "They thought they could hide everything," she muttered. "The sheriff, the governor, the families, they thought the land would be theirs if I stayed silent." "They counted wrong," Eli said. Clara scanned a page detailing the sheriff's dealings, the bribes, the forged deeds, the threats. Her chest tightened as she read aloud, "He killed him for this. He thought I'd never know. That I'd never fight." Eli's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "He underestimated you." Clara folded the paper carefully. 3 years of grief, of pretending, of watching the valley, waiting for someone to come after me. And now I know the truth. Now they'll see what happens when you cross me." "You're not alone," Eli said. Clara glanced at him. "I never was. But standing beside me doesn't make it easier. It just makes it possible." Her eyes drifted to the well outside. "This place, it remembers everything. Every betrayal, every death. Every lie. And you'll remind it," Eli said. Clara ran her fingers along the letters again. The sheriff thought he could control everything with fear. With power. With bullets. He forgot one thing. "What's that?" Eli asked. "That memory outlives him. And I remember every drop of blood he spilled." Eli nodded, silent, letting her words hang in the air. Clara felt the old anger swell again, sharper now, tempered by knowledge. She wasn't just angry. She was focused. She was precise. She was ready. "The deputies," she said, eyes narrowing. "They might follow orders. They might hesitate. But the sheriff, he'll come. And he'll bring everything he has." "And you'll be ready," Eli said. Clara's lips pressed into a line. Ready to remind him that killing my husband was a mistake. That thinking I'd be weak was a mistake. That underestimating me, underestimating this land, was the biggest mistake he ever made. Eli stepped closer to the porch, hands relaxed but alert. You've spent years alone. Now you have someone who knows the truth. Someone who can help. Clara exhaled slowly. It's not help I need. It's justice. And you'll have it, Eli said. She walked toward the edge of the yard, past the well, past the barn, and paused. The moonlight cast long shadows, making every fence post, every ridgeline, every stone seem alive. Do you ever think about the men he killed before my husband? She asked softly. All the time, Eli admitted. They haunt me, she whispered. Even now. Their faces, their lives, stolen. And he walked free. He won't for long, Eli said. Clara's hand brushed the dirt near the grave behind the house. She knelt briefly, letting her fingers press against the earth. I've buried too much already. I've watched the valley grow silent with fear. Not anymore. This ends soon. Tonight we prepare. Tomorrow we act. You're not acting alone, Eli said. I know, she said, rising. But the weight of this, the blood, the memory, it's mine. And I carry it with every step. Eli's eyes swept the horizon again. They won't know what hit them. Clara's gaze hardened. No. They'll know the truth first. And then they'll feel the consequences. The wind whispered through the dry grass, carrying faint echoes of the past, the sheriff's lies, the letters hidden, the betrayal, the death. Clara stood tall, broom in hand, shadows stretching long across the yard. Eli was beside her, silent, watchful, a steady presence. This place remembers everything, Clara said softly, almost to herself. Every secret, every crime, every drop of blood spilled. And you'll make sure it never forgets, Eli said. Clara's eyes glinted. Exactly. Every memory, every lie. I'll bring it all into the light. And they'll regret thinking they could bury the truth with my husband. Eli nodded once. Then let's make sure the valley remembers. The night was thick, heavy, full of anticipation. Clara felt it in her bones, the storm to come, the reckoning waiting over the ridge. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the sheriff, not of the valley, not of the blood that had come before. She exhaled, steady, calm, her hands resting on the broom. We start with the truth, she said. And then everything else follows. Eli's silence said it all. They were ready. The wind carried the scent of dust and old wood, and for the first time, Clara felt the valley belonged to her, not to the sheriff, not to fear, not to lies. She lifted her eyes to the horizon. Tomorrow, she said softly, everything changes. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the ridge was alive with movement. Clara stood at the edge of the north pasture, broom in hand, the letters tucked under her arm. Eli crouched behind the fence, silent, eyes scanning every tree line, every shadow. Dust clung to their boots, and the valley held its breath. They're coming, Eli said, voice low. Clara didn't respond. She just tightened her grip on the broom, feeling the weight of 3 years of grief and planning in her arms. The sheriff and his men appeared first, riding slowly, confident, thinking the widow alone would surrender. Clara let them come closer. Step down, she called, voice carrying across the dry pasture. Leave this land or face what comes next. The sheriff dismounted, badge glinting in the morning sun. Step aside, widow. I've been patient. Too patient. You've waited, Clara said, and 3 years later, nothing's yours. Not my husband. Not my land. Not me. You think this changes anything? The sheriff spat. You think defiance will save you? It will, Clara said firmly. Defiance is all I have left. And it's stronger than your badges, stronger than your bullets. One of the deputies laughed nervously. She's just a woman, he said. It's a waste. Clara's eyes flicked to him, sharp and hard. Then you've already lost. Eli stepped forward slightly, a silent warning. The deputy froze, realizing the quiet man wasn't just watching. He was ready. The sheriff sneered. You have no allies. No proof. No chance. Clara smiled faintly. I have every letter, every secret, every truth my husband left behind. And I have a witness who saw everything. The sheriff's hand twitched near his gun. You can't. Clara cut him off, voice rising. I can. And I will. Today. The deputies shifted uneasily. They'd expected a nervous widow, someone to shake and comply. Not this. Not Clara, standing tall, fire in her eyes, a silent man beside her who didn't flinch. The sheriff took a step forward. You'll regret this, he said. Clara didn't flinch. Regret? You'll remember what it means to cross me. The deputy next to him looked at the sheriff. Hesitation crossed his face. The sheriff barked an order, but his voice lacked authority now. Clara could see it, his power cracking. Eli finally spoke, voice low but cutting. They think fear controls this valley. It doesn't. You taught them that.